Hello you lovely lot and welcome to another video. My name is Katie and I've got a few art hauls in one video which I just wanted to share with you. These are a collection of a few bits and pieces I've gathered when there's been a good offer or an opportunity to get them, and I've hung on to them until it's time to start using them. The first part of this haul is a very important part, I think, and that is what I got from Jackson's. They had a paper sale on about a month and a half ago, so naturally I took advantage of that. I picked up some Fluid Easy Block watercolour paper in 300 GSM hot pressed, Clairefontaine paint on white, and that's a gum pad 250 GSM. I kind of just like that as a general all-purpose paper. And some Saunders Waterford 300 GSM. I picked up 10 sheets of that in the white and rough texture. Why not? Next on the list is a Scrawler Box Scrawler Blanks kit. I've got quite a few points racked up on my account, and sometimes I use it to deduct some money off my subscription. Sometimes I plant trees with it, but this time I thought I would get a Scrawler Blanks kit, and I picked up the pencil case version. You obviously get a blank Scrawler Box pencil case, some Parker Moscas to work on there, a pencil, a sticker, some Tic Tacs, and some Art Gecko paper, and I'm going to probably play about with that off camera, but if I do make a video of it, obviously I'll share it with you guys. But I thought, you know what, it's always good to have some extra storage for my stuff, right? Now for this part of the haul, I was really lucky to have an opportunity to pop up. We don't have Blick in the UK, it is a US shop, and my husband was heading out to Washington DC back in August actually, and I gave him a bit of a list and said just pick up whatever you think I'll use. The mini doodle kit is a nice little tin, and I think he bought it with the tin in mind. It's got a little colouring book in there and some very basic art supplies. It's fun, but we all know I'm going to put watercolours in there once I've used the contents. He also picked up for me some Quor watercolour medium. I've been wanting to try that for a while. No clue what it does, but you know. He also chose some Gansai Tambi watercolours, which I've already got, but I haven't got a small selection of them like this. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad I've got a brand new set of my own. The set I have at the moment, I bought it off eBay, so it's nice to have just a brand new one there. My, he picked up some Holbein gouache for me, and that's going to be in its own video, but I'm very excited to try that. Can't go wrong with any surfaces for me, so he picked up a Strathmore drawing pad, as well as a Blick own brand hot press watercolour block. So no doubt I'll be making some sketch pads with that and probably doing a few paintings on there, but I usually have making my own sketch pads in mind or sketch books when I get a watercolour block like this. But yes, I probably will play about with it some more in its intended sense. I like the fact it's in a block as well, because if I do decide to use it as it is a surface, I don't have to tape everything down. It should withstand the washes of colour. And the final item from the Blick haul is a Grumbacher, or is it Grumbacher? Let me know down below. In and Out Pages watercolour sketchbook. And you'll see you can rearrange the pages. I mean, that's fabulous. And here's a couple of other random bits. I picked up some metallic pens, which aren't great, some Hobbycraft own brand gouache, which I haven't tried yet, and some Turner acrylic gouache, which at the start of the year was featured in an upcrate box, and I just decided I need some more of that in my life, some more colours, and they were a great price on Amazon, so I thought let's seize this opportunity whilst I can. Obviously, I am just quickly swatching them out here. I used the fluid watercolour paper because it had got a blemish on it, and I thought, well, might as well just use it to swatch the paints on. And of course, I'm not just going to show you a bunch of stuff and not use some of it, so I decided that this would be a great video to actually continue using those Turner acrylic gouache. And I thought I would use my mushroom girls as a bit of a theme here, and I thought I would create a queen mushroom. Now, I will return back to a lot of these items from this haul. I'm not going to lie as well, I have played with the Gansai Tambi paints off camera, and that was in the Grumbacher sketch pad, and that's just something I want to do on my own time, but don't worry, I will have them featured on a video at some point. As I will with the other gouaches I've got. I really do want to do a bit of a comparison video, but I think that's going to take a really long time to cram them all into one. So what I might do is a project book like I have done with the run up to Inktober, and then I can analyse it a little bit better as I go along, rather than just cramming it all into one video. But anyway, that's enough talking about the supplies I've picked up. Let's talk about the supplies I'm using. So I found these paints when I first used them back in January absolutely stunning to work with. I'd always held back from trying them myself because I personally don't enjoy the qualities that you have from acrylic paints, and the reason I like gouache is you've got a bit more wiggle room for how long you can leave it on a palette for. You can obviously redampen it and work with it again after that, and I thought I'm gonna have problems here because the acrylic side of things is going to make things dry up quickly, and obviously when acrylic paint dries it isn't budging. It's definitely not workable again if you add water to it. However, my experiences with that upcrate box at the beginning of the year opened my mind a little bit to these. Yes, you don't have quite as long of a time to work with things, you've got to get it on the paper pretty quickly. However, yes, it dries pretty quickly, but it layers without bringing the layers beneath it back to life, so there's the advantage there, I guess. I also like to use gouache in general in quite an opaque capacity. I don't know why, it's just how I like it, and it's how I was taught how to use it back in the college days. Even though we didn't actually use gouache, I obviously picked some up once, had a chat with my teacher, and he said, well, you're best using them this way, and it's kind of stuck with me ever since. I'm not a big fan of using them as a watercolour either, but I quite liked how these did actually dissolve into the water, and it didn't seem too horrible and streaky in places, which is great because for laying down the background, for example, I can just make sure there's at least some colour on there before I go over it in another layer to ensure there's no pesky white bits of paper popping through. So yeah, it's got the qualities of acrylics I don't like, but it's also got the advantages of acrylics that I do like. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's quite versatile. It's a nice, versatile, opaque paint. That's the best way I can describe it. So as I've waffled on just, obviously what's gone on in the background there, as most of the base layers have been put down. I did find that I had to make quite a lot of the flesh tone I'm using for this character here, and again, that was to minimise the risk of it drying before I'd finished using it. Rather than using a traditional plastic palette like I would for normal gouache or even a ceramic one, I actually used some tear-off palette sheets. It just keeps the paint wet for longer, I guess, and I'll be honest, I detest it when the paint is just solidified onto the palette and I can't get it off. I know it can be very satisfying to pick lots of layers off, but when I use this, I don't use enough paint there for those layers to build up, and it's just painful. So the tear-off acrylic, well, the acrylic paint palette sheets are perfect to use with these acrylic gouache. Going back to its drying time, I didn't feel the need to get the heat gun on there to speed things up a bit, and as well, I wouldn't risk doing that either. I don't know if you've ever tried to dry acrylic paint before with a heat gun, but it doesn't always work great, and you can end up sort of setting the paint and then melting it, and that obviously changes the chemical composition and the finish of the paint once you've got it quote unquote dry. But like I say, the drying time wasn't really an issue here. I thought it was time to tidy up the edges, and I did find that the liner pens worked just fine for the job there. I used a ruler just to make sure those lines were as straight as I could get them, and then it was time to start adding a few more finer details as we were going along. Although the colours in the background were quite muted and they were nice and easy to mix, to be fair, I wanted our lovely mushroom queen to really stand out, so using those bold jewel colours just seemed perfect. I thought the blue for her clothes would be great, and adding the reds for the crown details as well as the sprigs of mushrooms growing out. So she's a bit of a queen toadstool. She's not a princess toadstool, she's queen toadstool. Not affiliated with Mario either, although I do like Mario. But anyway, I'm waffling on a bit there. So yes, I add all of those red details in there, and I love the pop of colour that it has. I also add the white flecks on there because, you know, toadstools, them little white bits on the top. And then, of course, all the other toadstools that's on this character. I kind of didn't realise just how many I'd done until it came to painting them all in. One thing that I can massively advise you guys using the acrylic gouache paints is to really look after your brushes whilst using them. I mean, if you're using really nice, good quality brushes anyway, you should look after them because it's an expensive habit not looking after them. But you can be forgiven for leaving a bit of residual regular gouache or watercolour in there because it's water soluble and you can just get some soap on it and clean it off afterwards. However, I did find with these it's so important to make sure your brush is clean between each colour use or each section, or if you're changing between brushes, please ensure that it's really clean because it will get stuck in the bristles, and unfortunately it's those acrylic properties again. It's going to stay pretty water resistant once it's dried, and you really are going to risk ruining your brush, and you don't want that, especially if you're using your really nice ones. Of course, I totally forgot to mention what paper I'm using. So I am using the Stonehenge hot pressed watercolour paper, and I've featured it before a few times on this channel. I like the square format and it just seemed the right vessel to use this paint on. I know I haven't used any paper from the haul, but I'd already got this drawn out and I thought this needs acrylic gouache. But I'm sure you'll have noticed on the Scrawler-tober video, I used that fluid watercolour pad for that picture. And I'm just happily playing about with the other surfaces I've got there. So it's actually quite nice to do a bit of an art haul video. I don't really splurge a lot in one go. Very often anyway. I think the last one I did, it was at the beginning of the year, and again, similar to this haul, it's either a good price on things that I need or want, or the opportunity to at least obtain them is there. Although saying that, I tell a lie, I think I did do another art haul for when my local art shop closed down and they were selling everything off. But again, that was more of an opportunity than anything else, and I picked up a couple of items I wanted to try, but the majority of the items I pick up are ones that I'm going to use, and paper tends to be the one I go through the most. I love to make little project books, and having a variety of paper to see how materials interact differently is a great way to get to know the materials I'm using, I guess. And it's a good practice to have to determine what paper, what surface is going to work well for a project. For me, I love using the smooth watercolour papers, especially for gouache, because it's such a flat, matte finish. I tend not to want all of those textures to distract from how pristine I want the layers to look, especially for blocked out coloured areas. I also find that when it comes to adding detail in there, especially with a liner pen, then bumps and ridges on paper make it very difficult to get intricate and fine lines down there. So for a smooth surface like this, it is perfect, and yes, I do go on there with a lot of line details. I actually really like how, again, even though it's an acrylic based gouache, it doesn't reject the pen on there, and that makes me very happy, because there's nothing worse than when you're adding your line details on and you find that the medium you've used beneath is not compatible with what you're using on top. It's such a nightmare to try and figure it out. Anyway, I would say we are pretty much done with this painting. Yes, the pencil marks did still show up a little bit, and I did try and erase them off, but I didn't really particularly want to lift up any of the paint or pen that I'd done there. But overall, of course, I'm very happy with these paints. And of course, let me know what you guys think down below and what you'd like to see me do with these other supplies. As always, there's some more things on screen I think you're going to love watching if you haven't already. I also want to say a massive thank you for watching as always. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you lovely lot soon. Bye!